If we start with, because we're going to have to draw a bit of the body today, the top half of the body if you like, so we need to understand how the proportions of the body work before we can really get to grips with what we're doing today. So I'm just going to show you here. Now you can copy me if you want and do a little bit of a warm-up exercise, but if not, just watch, and I'm just going to try and show you about how the proportions of the body work. Some of you might also already know this, but it might be a good refresher anyway. So when you're drawing a full length figure, there's all sorts of measurements that you can use to help make sure that things are in the right place. So what you do is you would start with the head. So you would draw like a normal head shape. It's that sort of upside down egg shape that we've talked about. And then you can use that as a unit of measurement. What I mean by that is you can take your pencil, like we've done before, put it to the top of the head and your fingers to the bottom of the chin, and you can use that to sort of figure out how big or little everything should be. So the average human body is between 7 and 8 heads tall. Okay, so you've got one already, you've got one head there. So 1, 2, use your other finger to help you, 3, 4. Now at 4, I usually stop and make a little mark. 5, 6, 7, 8. And then make another little mark. And you can see why I drew that head so small at the top, because you need quite a lot of space to fit the full body in. So I'm just going to exaggerate those marks so you can see them. Okay. Now, all of your top half of your body, from your shoulders to your pelvis, they all fit in this space here, and this bit here is all your legs. Okay, so what we need to do is break that down a little bit. So I'm going to start with another circular shape, and this circular shape is going to represent, if you like, the torso area, and then another one that sits on that line is going to represent your hips. Okay, now you can just join them up with some simple lines like that, and then join the head up to the body. So already we've got the shape of the body. The next thing we need to get in place, I usually get the legs, the arms in place next. So the way I do that is I usually draw small circles for, if you like, where the joints are. So any like your shoulder and then your elbow is usually somewhere between the halfway between these two shapes. So we can draw like an elongated circle down to there, and that gives us our upper arm where our biceps would be. Then on that line we can draw another circle, and that can represent our elbow. And then from there we can draw our forearm, reaching down to pretty much level with this original mark we made on the 4. Okay, your hand will fit just below your hips there. Okay, so I'll do that on the other side so you can see it again. So a circle for the shoulder, a line coming down to represent the upper arm, another circle for the elbow, a line coming down for the forearm, and then your hand finishes at the bottom. Okay, now the last bit of this is the legs, I suppose. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our legs are a little bit wide, similar shapes to what we've drawn here, but the legs are going to be that little bit wider because obviously they've got to carry the weight of the body. So we're going to draw another one halfway between here and here, just above halfway is where we're going to have the knees. Okay, so we're going to draw a line coming down your knee. So again, I'm using a circle to draw the knee, and then you can have your where your shins are, coming down to that. Okay, so that is how you get the body in proportion. So the top half of your body is what we'll be focusing on today. But I just thought to help you understand what we're doing today, it would be a good idea to give you just a little overview of how you draw up the whole figure. Did that make sense to everyone? Okay. Is everyone there? Good. So, this is the picture that we're going to do today. I picked this one because it's quite similar to the peony yip in terms of the face, and I also thought that it'd be nice to move on to do a bit more of the body than just the portrait all the time. So I'm going to have this next to me, and I'll try to make sure that it's in shot. I'll just move along so it's easier to see. I'll try to make sure that if it's in shot, if it moves out of shot, just let me know. So what we're going to do is, just like I showed you with the figure drawing, we're going to start with the head. Now everything obviously is over to one side, so it's a little bit different. But start your head quite high up and quite central to the picture. So just like we did with peony yip, that's going to be an oval shape that's slightly off to one side. So we've got the point over to one side, so the chin is up over here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this area of her body as like one big shape. So we're going to get that in place. We're going to look, if you look, the shoulder is going to be in line with the front of the face, so we can get that in there. Draw that as one sort of round shape. And then we come down to her hips, and they're narrower than this shape here, so we need to draw a smaller shape. So you end up with almost like a snowman. I'm just going to draw them a little bit darker because you can't see them very well on the screen. And remember, all these shapes are to get rid of later, so don't worry if they're not brilliant at this point. And then really we can start joining things up without putting in too much detail at the moment. So just give a suggestion of where the front of that neck is going to be. This part of the body sort of goes in, and then we come out again at the hips. What you should be looking for with your three basic shapes is that your hips are more forward than your face. So if you drew a line up from here, it'd be quite far in front of her. So you need to make sure that yours does the same job. It comes out a little bit further, otherwise it'll just look too straight. We can also do the same sort of line over this side, where we bring it in slightly, just using straight lines at this point, and then bring it out. Down at the bottom we can see her leg starting to emerge from her dress, so we need to do a diagonal line that flows with this general shape here, where her leg is coming forward. Okay, so now what we're going to do is going to try and work on the arms and make sure the arms are in place. So we're going to come back up to the top, and really at the edge of this shape we're just going to draw a circular shape that would represent where her shoulder would be. That is then going to be met with her elbow. Now if we look with her elbow, it comes slightly below where these two sort of lines are joining. So we need to think about the elbow coming around about here. If you prefer, you can just start drawing that shape, this shape, and try and make sure it's long enough, but sometimes it's good to have a destination to work towards. Once that's in place, we can look at the wrist, and if you imagine a curved line coming from where your leg is, you can use that to start getting a suggestion of where that wrist is going to end up being. And then the hand sort of drops in almost like a vertical line down to where her little finger is. We're not going to worry too much about the hand at this point, so just make a circular shape where you want the hand to go. On the other side of her body you can see her other arm, but we're not going to worry about that until we've got a little bit of this worked out. Okay, so at this point you should have a series of basic shapes. You should have one for the head, you should have one for the top of the body, the torso, one for the hips, and then a series of basic shapes for the arm that's closest to us. Okay, so now we're going to go on to her face, and we're going to try and make sure that everything's in the right place. So we need an eye line. Her head is tilting, so she's looking slightly this way. She's looking slightly downwards, not too much. But we can start to get that in place by using our guideline, so they're sloping slightly. So we've got our eye line. Now remember, our eye line should be roughly halfway between the top of the head and the bottom of the chin. Our nose line should be halfway between the eye line and the bottom of the chin. And the mouth line roughly halfway as well. My pencil's pretty blunt, so I'm just going to switch to a sharper pencil if I've got one. Okay, so when we're going to start doing the face, we're going to start with the nose again. So you might want to either zoom in on your picture so you can see it a bit more clearly. I'll leave mine like that so you can see mine if you're struggling with yours. And I'm going to start by doing the tip of the nose just like we've done before, and that will be a diagonal line that comes out from that nose line that we've done, and then a diagonal line that goes back in underneath the eye line. And then I'm just going to come out again where her brow is going to be, and then her forehead curves like that. I'm not going to take the forehead to the top of this shape because obviously we've got to allow for the hair and everything else. Coming down, I'm going to do the top lip, and just like Peony Yip's drawing, the top lip is coming out further than the bottom. So we need to do a small C shape, bring that line out, and then do another C shape to bring the top lip back to the mouth line. Once that's done, we can do the bottom lip, and that's just going to be a C shape, and it's going to be set slightly back. So we're doing more detailed work than we've done before. We're working on a much smaller scale. Usually we'd be drawing this so it filled this space. So it's a little bit more intricate than what we've done in the past. And then another diagonal line back to where a chin is going to be, and then if you look at a chin, it's kind of like a C shape again. So it's quite curved. It's set back a little bit from the bottom lip. And then that line can just feed back to where the neck is. Again, any lines that you do are easy to get rid of if you need to. I'm going to start getting rid of some of my basic shapes so they're not in the way. Just leaving the eye line one. And you don't have to press particularly dark at this point, it can be all quite light lines. So going back up to the eye, we're going to start with the actual eyebrow, and we're going to put that brow right near the edge of the face, because if you look, it's not over here somewhere. And we're going to do a diagonal line going up. I've pretty much set this on the eye line, by the way, and then you do a diagonal line going down, but it should taper, it should come to a point. Now set in from the eyebrow is the top eyelid. So if you look really closely, you'll be able to see a diagonal line that comes from the eyebrow that comes to the top fold of the eyelid. So I'm going to get that in as a marker, and then I'm going to do a diagonal line back to the eyelashes. So that gives me a placement where I can start doing my eye from. And there I'm just going to do a diagonal line that sweeps down that represents the top of her eye. And this can be quite thick, so build it up gradually and it comes to a flick up at the edge. Her eye is relatively simple to draw, the actual eye itself, because it's just almost like a black dot. So we don't have to do too much fussing with the irises and everything else. and then below that we can start the eyelid underneath, so the eyelashes at the bottom, and you might want to start getting a little bit of shading in just below the eye, that's sort of representing where her cheekbone will be. Okay, so I've got a guideline here on the nose that I'm going to carefully try and get rid of because it's going to get in the way. And at this point you can get rid of, lightly rub away some of the eyeline as well, because you're not going to need it. We don't need to draw ears or anything like that, so you don't need it. If you rub away a bit of your drawing by accident, just go back in and re-establish it. Okay, so now I want to just get into the nose and the mouth a little bit. So the general outline of the nose we should have in place, but now we need to get in the nostril. So if you look, there's almost a very light line that curves from the tip of the nose that helps give us the placement of the nostril. Before we commit to drawing that nostril, just have a look and do that thing where you look and see where should this corner of the nose sort of join up. So if we did a straight line up, it sort of lines up with the top eyelash. So I know that a light line there, it's roughly going to end up about here. So that gives me a start and an end point, and then I can just get the nostril in place. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the mouth. The mouth line, again, it's relatively easy. Where you've got the top lip and the bottom lip, just bring a line that's going slightly diagonally down. Don't bring it too far. And unless you're going to add colour to this, which some of you might want to do later, you can just add a little bit of soft shading on that top lip. Hopefully you can see my face pretty well. I'm just going at the bridge of the nose, just needs to be softened up a little bit, I think, looking in the camera. So there is the face in profile. So now what we need to do is we need to start thinking about the hair. So the hair, the first fold of the hair actually rises up a little bit and then sweeps back. So I'm drawing this line here. From there, I'm just going to start to drop in this little skull cap that she's wearing, or this neckerchief she's wearing over her head. I'm just going to give a general suggestion of where that line is. And again, this is going to be very light because it is only just going to help us get this bit of the hair so we know where we're working. So take that line back as far as you think it needs to go. I would say just before halfway between the front of the head and the back of the head. And just draw a very soft line representing that bandana. Okay, so now that we've got that line in, that's going to be a line that we can rub out, that we can change. We can get this line in here, so this sort of like section of a hair, the top section of a hair. So we need to come down and just sweep back to that bandana. Okay, from there we can start doing some of these curls that we're getting at the front of the hair, these bits. So I'm going to start actually with this bit because this bit is the bit that impacts on a face the most. So we're going to bring a line curving out towards her eyebrow and then back, sort of use the shape of your eyebrow that you've drawn to then curve it backwards towards the bandana. I don't know, sweetie. Do you want to go and have a look for her? Then the next thing is we're going to do another section where we're going to curve a line that runs along there, and then that curves back out along almost like a cheekbone. It follows where a cheekbone would go. I'm sorry about the and that curve comes just below her jawline. So we can bring that down to a point, and then we'll use another line here to represent this next section, the section that's going to come closest to the bandana. And that comes out wide. Don't worry too much about all the individual strands of hair at the moment, and then that flicks down to the point that we've just established. Next to that, there's another series of hair folds, so we're going to do this one here, because it sort of comes out that shape that we've already drawn, and it comes to a point that just goes past her shoulder. And then I'm going to move on to this curve that comes round here. And that sort of meets up with the first point that we drew. Okay, so now I'm looking at that and I'm thinking I've got that section of hair in place. I've got roughly this section and this section. Now I need to get this section in place. So I need to adjust the bandana, bring it back a little bit further so I can get this fold in place as well. Now there's a flower here. We're just going to do a round shape that is roughly going to suggest where that flower is going to end up. And then we can use that shape to sort of establish the back of the head. So with the back of the head, it's very much an inverted C shape. So we're just going to do a curve that goes to the back. Like that. And then from there, we're not going to worry too much about this hair, because this hair is going to be dependent on how we draw the body. So we're just going to make a suggestion of this line that runs along her back. And sort of just let that line just disappear off, okay, because we can come back up to these bits later. Alright, so now we've got the head, the hair, the bandana, even a suggestion of where the flower's going to go. We can start moving on to the rest of her body. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit more so I can see a bit more, so I've got more visual information. And then I'm going to start curving her dress. Now that line is a curve that curves downwards. Very softly, but it does. Take that line to where you've drawn her shoulder, and we'll start to get in this fold of the sleeve. So it goes up a little bit, and then it flicks out quite sharply. Like so. And then it curves down very sharply as well. So you're almost looking at a right angle situation here. And try and bring it back to roughly where you think it belongs on this shape that we've got here. And then the top bit of that sleeve, use another line that runs fairly parallel to that line back to there. Love. Okay, so now we've got that sleeve in place, we can start getting some of the arm in place, because the arm's going to get in the way of everything else. So this is probably the bit that is trickiest to the whole thing. So we're going to do a sort of straight line, there's not much of a curve in it, going down to where the elbow is, and then another straight line that just comes a little bit further down. I'm going to rub out some of my guideline, not because I want you to, just because I don't want my image on the screen to look too confused. Okay, now her elbow is actually facing directly towards us, and it's just a mark like that. We don't have to do much more than that. And then from there we can go in, come out, because the top bit of her, just past her wrist, is a little bit wider, and then we can start tapering that line down towards her wrist. So it comes out, and then out again for the wrist. Okay, so we're going to do the same on the other side, only this time it goes in a little bit before it goes out. It curves, and then we flow back in to where the wrist is going to be. Okay, so I'm just going to clean that line up so it's as easy to see as possible. So it went in, out, curved a little bit, and then flipped towards the wrist. Okay. So now we've got a lot of that arm out the way, we're going to try and get some of her clothing in place. So from where her sleeve is, go back up to there and just drop a diagonal line that's fairly straight, flicks out a little bit, and then that is going to form at the bottom of the top. So bring that back towards the arm, and if you want to, you can continue that very lightly through the arm so you know exactly where it should be coming out on the other side. Bring it across, and near the edge of her body is where we see sort of like a crease, a join in the fabric. So just before the end of where we're going to see her body, just bring it up a little bit and then bring it back down again. And then we can help us get it coming out a little bit further. So just use your judgment on how far you need to come out from this point. And then we have a line that goes diagonally up and then curves back round to where this fold of hair is that we started with. There's another section here of hair, I think it's hair anyway. Just leave that for the moment. Okay, so then now let's move down the body a little bit. So under the top here, we're going to draw a curving line that sort of flows. Everything on this part of the drawing has to flow together, otherwise it's not going to work. So a curving line that flows out, and then at the base of that line, just sort of in line with the elbow, we're going to do a curved line going back towards the elbow, like that. And again, you can use a light line to continue that through the arm, so you know where it should be coming out on the other side. Curve it round to the edge of your basic shapes, and then we can just get this bit of a body in place where we're going to do a diagonal line coming in, and then it curves out slightly. So it comes in and curves out like that. So you can see that hopefully your drawing's coming together quite nicely. What you might want to do now is just spend a little bit of time. We've used those basic shapes in the top half of the body that we've been doing. We don't need them now, so let's spend a little bit of time just cleaning up our image to make it look as strong as possible. And then just re-establish some of your lines after that. Okay, so now we're going to get on to the thing that probably none of us are looking forward to drawing, and that is the hand. Okay, so we're going to draw, when you're drawing hands, usually what you would do is, in the same way we've broken down the whole body, you break this hand down into lots and lots of different shapes. So literally each knuckle of a finger would have a different shape, one there, one there, one there. But on this one, because we're only seeing part of the hand, I think we can do it just with line. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, from where our wrist is, we're going to do a straight line coming down, a line drop, and that's where we get to the knuckle, the first knuckle on her little finger. So now we're going to do a line coming straight down, and then we can just see what would be the tip of a finger. Okay, now it might be useful to just give yourself a rounded curve on the bottom there so you know where the end of the finger is. Then fold it back up to where that knuckle was. A straight line running parallel to this line. And then you can, if you look, there's a very soft bit of shading of a curve that almost looks like it's going to run back to this wrist here. So just very softly get that in place. After that, we can see 2 of the remaining fingers on this hand. So where the first knuckle is, it's a diagonal line out and then a straight line down. And then the next one is another diagonal line out from this knuckle, and it flicks out a little bit like that. Okay, so now we're going to go up to where the thumb is. Look at this first, the little finger, the only finger that we can really truly see properly. And I want you to draw almost like a diagonal line going up to your basic shape. And then a curve comes down from this wrist towards that. So it looks kind of odd, it looks almost like a, I don't know what shape that would be, but it's very diagonal and then very straight up again. And then from there, we can get the thumb in place. So it comes in a little bit at the top of the thumb, and then we come out to a rounded shape like that. So it's gone in, round, in, and back out to where that bit is. And once that's done, again, you can rub out any basic shapes that you no longer need. Just spend a little bit of time getting your shading in there. Just shade around where the knuckles of the hand are, where the joints of the hand are. Can everyone